You wake up and something has changed forever. It's not the alarm clock that sounds different. It's not the light coming through the window in a strange way. It's you. It's as if your entire life you had been living inside a dream, following automatic routines, believing stories that others told about who you should be, about what you should want, about how you should live. And now, suddenly, you've awakened to the naked and raw reality of your existence. And there's no going back. That comfortable ignorance no longer exists, that blind faith in the structures that sustained your previous life. Albert Camus knew exactly this devastating yet liberating experience. He called it awakening to the absurd. And today we're going to understand why this awakening, however frightening it may be, can be the greatest gift that life can give us. Imagine that you always lived in a house with windows painted from the inside, showing false landscapes, artificial skies. You grew up looking at these paintings and believing that's what existed out there. One day, by accident, the paint peels off. You see a tiny piece of the real world through the glass, and you can no longer pretend that the paintings are real. This is what happens when we awaken to the absurdity of existence. Suddenly, all the certainties that sustained our life reveal themselves as peeling paintings. The work we did with so much purpose seems mechanical and empty. The relationships we cultivated out of social convention lose their automatic shine. The goals we pursued because they were expected of us show themselves to be completely arbitrary. And then comes the terror. If none of this had real meaning, what remains? If I'm not who I thought I was, who am I really? Camus lived this experience intensely. He grew up in Algeria, in an environment where Mediterranean traditions mixed with European modernity. He lost his father very early, was raised by an almost deaf mother in dignified poverty, and from a young age he felt this strangeness before life, this sensation that people lived as if there were a secret manual of existence that no one had ever shown him. They seemed to know exactly what to do, how to behave, what to believe in. But to him, all of this sounded false, automatic, as if people were playing roles in a theatrical play whose meaning no one really understood. And the more he observed, the clearer it became. There is no manual at all, there is no predetermined meaning, there is no cosmic script that explains why we are here and what we should do. This discovery can be devastating. It's like discovering that you're an actor on stage, but there's no director, no script, no audience that understands what's happening. You're there, under the spotlights, and you need to improvise every line, every gesture, every moment. And there's no one to applaud or boo to say if you're doing well or badly. There's only the empty stage and you. Many people, when they reach this understanding, fall into despair. Some try to go back to sleep, pretend they never woke up, dive headfirst into distractions, addictions, toxic relationships, excessive consumerism, anything that anesthetizes this acute awareness of the absence of meaning. Others throw themselves into extreme ideologies, fundamentalist religions, radical political movements, trying to find a new manual, a new certainty to replace those that collapsed. But Camus proposed a third path, revolt, not a violent or destructive revolt, but an existential revolt, a refusal to accept both despair and false consolations. It's saying, yes, life is absurd, yes, there is no predetermined meaning, yes, there are no guarantees or absolute certainties. And even so, even knowing all this, I choose to live. I choose to live fully, intensely, creating my own meaning at every moment. It's like a mountain climber who knows that the mountain has no consciousness of him, that climbing won't save him or make him immortal, that in the end he will die like everyone else. And even so he chooses to climb, not for the mountain, not for immortality, but for the pure experience of being alive during the climb. When you awaken to the absurd, you realize that everyone around you is sleeping, and this can be very lonely. You see people killing themselves working for promotions in companies that make no real difference in the world. You see people building relationships based on appearances, status, social conventions, but rarely on genuine connection. You see people accumulating objects, experiences, achievements, as if this could fill the existential void that we all carry. And you want to scream, people, wake up! You're wasting your lives chasing ghosts. But then you realize they're not ready to wake up. And maybe they never will be. And that's okay. Each person has their time, their process, their journey. What Camus understood And what is so difficult to accept is that we cannot save anyone from the absurd. We cannot wake anyone up by force. Each person needs to go through their own awakening, at their own pace, in their own way. Our responsibility is only with our own existence. It's choosing at every moment how we're going to live our life, knowing that it has no predetermined meaning. And paradoxically, it's exactly this lack of meaning that gives us total freedom to create our own meaning. If there's no cosmic script, it means we can write our own script. If there's no divine director telling us how to act, it means we are completely free to choose our actions. But this freedom is frightening. It's much more comfortable to follow rules, traditions, external expectations. It's much easier to live on autopilot, doing what we've always done, thinking how we've always thought. Awakening to the absurd means taking total responsibility for our existence. It means stopping blaming parents, society, fate, God, the system for our problems and our choices. It means recognizing that we are the only authors of our story. Even though we didn't choose to be here, even though we didn't ask to be born. It's a responsibility too heavy for many people. That's why they prefer to keep sleeping. You who have awakened, who are watching this video, probably already feel the weight of this responsibility. Maybe you're going through an existential crisis, questioning everything you believed, feeling like you've lost your footing. Maybe you're wondering if it's worth continuing, if there's any real reason to get out of bed tomorrow. And I want you to know that this feeling is normal. It's part of the awakening process. Everyone who awakens to the absurd goes through this moment of total disorientation. It's like leaving a dark room into sunlight. At first you can't see anything. You're blind, disoriented. But gradually your eyes adjust, and you begin to see the world as it really is, without filters, without illusions. And what do you discover when your eyes adjust to this new light? You discover that life, even being absurd, even having no predetermined meaning, is infinitely more interesting and rich than any story anyone could have invented about it. You discover that your capacity to feel, to think, to create, to connect with other human beings, to be moved by music, by a sunset, by a gesture of affection, is something extraordinary. It doesn't need to have a cosmic reason to be extraordinary. It's extraordinary in itself. It's like discovering that you can fly. It doesn't matter if no one told you that you could fly. It doesn't matter if there's no flight manual. It doesn't matter if there's no universal reason to fly. You can fly, and that's magical. Camus had a powerful image for this. He spoke of Sisyphus, the character from Greek mythology condemned by the gods to push a stone up a mountain for all eternity. Every time he reached the top, the stone rolled back down the mountain and he had to start over. A punishment apparently meaningless, cruel, absurd. But Camus proposed that we imagine Sisyphus happy. Not happy because the stone had meaning, not happy because one day the punishment would end, but happy because he chose to completely embrace his condition. Happy because he found pleasure in the very act of pushing the stone, in the sensation of muscles working, in overcoming each obstacle, in the view that unfolds with each climb. Happy because he transformed his condemnation into his freedom. Let me ask you something that might touch deep into your experience. Do you also feel this strangeness of having awakened to something you can no longer deny? Do you feel that the people around you continue living in a kind of trance while you see things they cannot see? If you feel this, write in the comments, "I also woke up and there's no going back," because you need to know that you're not alone in this experience. There's an invisible community of people who have gone through this awakening, who understand exactly what you're feeling, and your courage to admit this can help someone who is going through the same process but still feeling completely isolated. We are like Sisyphus, each one of us. We wake up every day, face our challenges, our personal stones, knowing that tomorrow we'll have to do it all again, knowing that one day we're going to die, and that most of the things we do will be forgotten. And this can be depressing or it can be liberating, depending on our perspective. If we expect life to have a ready-made meaning, for someone to give us a reason to exist, for the universe to explain our mission to us, we'll be eternally frustrated and bitter. But if we accept that meaning is something we create, that we build, that we invent at every moment through our choices, then we discover incredible freedom. You can choose to be kind to people, not because there's a divine commandment that orders kindness, but because you decide you want to contribute to a less hostile world. You can choose to create something beautiful, Not because beauty has a cosmic purpose, but because the act of creating connects you with a deep part of yourself. You can choose to love someone, not because eternal love exists, but because loving is one of the most intense and transformative experiences a human being can have. You can choose to fight for causes you believe in, not because you have a guarantee of victory, but because the fight itself makes you feel alive, connected, part of something bigger than you. Awakening to the absurd is not the end of hope. It's the beginning of authentic hope. Because now you're no longer waiting for someone to come solve your life, for some external revelation to give meaning to your existence. You know that you are the one who creates your own hope, moment by moment, choice by choice. And this is simultaneously frightening and empowering. Frightening because all the responsibility is yours. Empowering because all the freedom is also yours. There's a huge difference between living asleep and living awake. When you're sleeping, reacting automatically to external stimuli, following pre-programmed scripts, you're not really living. You're being lived by life. Circumstances control you. Others' expectations determine your choices, fears, and conditioning guide your steps. But when you wake up, when you take conscious responsibility for your existence, you finally begin to truly live. Every moment becomes an opportunity for conscious choice. Every interaction becomes a possibility for authentic creation. And living awake means accepting uncertainty as a constant companion. You don't know if your choices are right or wrong, because there's no external standard of right and wrong. You don't know if you'll be happy or unhappy tomorrow, because happiness is not a destination, it's a transitory state. You don't know if your relationships will last, if your projects will work out, if your bets will pay off. And that's okay. Uncertainty is not the enemy of full life, it's its natural condition. Trying to control everything, predict everything, guarantee everything, is a way of resisting life, not living it. When Camus spoke of revolt, he wasn't talking just about a mental attitude, but about a way of living. To revolt against the absurd means refusing both despair and illusory hope. It means saying yes to life, even knowing that it's imperfect, limited, temporary. It's like a gardener who plants flowers knowing they will wither, but plants anyway because the act of planting, caring, seeing beauty bloom, even temporarily, is already worth all the effort. Revolt also means solidarity, because when you awaken to the absurdity of your own existence, you also awaken to the absurdity of the existence of all other human beings. You realize that we're all in the same situation, thrown into this world without our consent, trying to find meaning, facing suffering, dealing with inevitable death. And this creates a natural basis for compassion and solidarity. We don't need to compete with each other as if life were a zero-sum game. We can support each other mutually in this absurd and wonderful journey. But solidarity doesn't mean trying to save anyone. It means being present, offering support when possible, sharing insights and experiences, but always respecting each person's individual process. Some people will prefer to keep sleeping, and that's a valid choice. Others will wake up differently than you, and that's also valid. The diversity of responses to the absurd is something beautiful, not problematic. The world becomes more interesting when each person finds their own way to deal with the absence of predetermined meaning. And here we reach a crucial point. If you've watched this far, if these reflections make sense to you, maybe you want to be part of a community of people who are exploring these themes, who are trying to live more consciously and authentically. It's not pressure, it's not advertising, it's just a gentle invitation. If you feel you want to continue this conversation, that you want to access more content about existential philosophy, about how to live fully even in the face of the absurd, consider subscribing to the channel. Not because I need the numbers, but because maybe you need this community. Maybe you need to know that you're not alone in this awakening journey. What impresses me most about Camus is that he managed to transform a potentially despairing realization into a vibrant and passionate philosophy of life. He didn't deny the absurd, didn't invent false consolations, didn't promise meanings that don't exist. He simply said, okay, life is like this, without predetermined meaning, without guarantees, without a script. So what? Does this mean we can't live intensely? Does this mean we can't create, love, fight, have fun, be moved? Of course we can. In fact, we can do all this even more authentically because we know we're doing it by our own choice, not by external obligation. He spoke of living with passion, not romantic passion, although this is also valid, but passion for existence itself, the passion of being alive, of having consciousness, of being able to experience this unique and unrepeatable moment that is your life here and now. Every day you wake up is literally a unique opportunity in the universe. There never was and never will be another you. Living exactly this moment, in this context, with these specific possibilities. This is extraordinary, regardless of any cosmic meaning. And passion for existence doesn't mean always being happy or always excited. It means being completely present, whether in joy, sadness, anger, or melancholy. It means not wasting your life trying to avoid difficult feelings or chasing only pleasant feelings. It means embracing the totality of human experience, including its dark and painful parts. Because even pain, when lived consciously, can be transformative and meaningful. Camus had a special relationship with the Mediterranean, with the sun, with nature. He found in this connection with the natural world a source of renewal and perspective. Not because nature had some special meaning, but because it existed without apologizing, without explanations, without justifications. A tree doesn't ask itself why it exists. It simply exists, grows, blooms, produces fruit, ages, dies. And there's something deeply liberating in this simplicity. We, human beings, complicate everything with our existential questions, our fears, our expectations. But deep down, we're part of the same nature as the tree. We can learn from it to exist in a simpler and more direct way. This doesn't mean stopping thinking or questioning. It means finding a balance between reflection and action, between thought and direct experience. Camus was simultaneously a deep thinker and a man of action. He wrote novels and philosophical essays, but he was also a journalist, activist, fought in the French Resistance during World War II. He didn't just contemplate the absurdity of existence, he lived intensely within this absurd condition. And that's what he invites us to do, not to be paralyzed by the lack of predetermined meaning, but to use this freedom that the lack of meaning gives us to create rich, complex, interesting lives. You can be an artist not because art saves the world, but because creating connects you with your deepest humanity. You can be a father or mother not because this guarantees immortality through children, but because parental love is one of the most transformative experiences available. You can dedicate yourself to a social cause, not because it will change everything, but because fighting for a better world makes you feel aligned with your deepest values. The question is not whether your actions will have eternal consequences or universal recognition. The question is whether they are authentic, whether they express who you really are, whether they contribute to your experience of being fully alive. And only you can answer these questions. No one else can determine what is authentic for you. No one else can decide how you should live your unique and unrepeatable existence. When you awaken to the absurd and have nowhere left to go back to, you face the most radical freedom possible, the freedom to completely invent yourself. There's no longer any external excuse for your unhappiness, your passivity, your mediocrity. But there's also no longer any external limit to your creativity, your generosity, your capacity to love and be loved. You are simultaneously totally responsible and totally free. And this combination, although frightening, is also the most empowering thing that can happen to a human being. Albert Camus died young, at 46, in a car accident. He didn't have time to see all his ideas develop completely, to live a long life to test his philosophy against all the vicissitudes that existence can offer. But he left something precious. The demonstration that it's possible to live with integrity, passion, and joy, even knowing that life is absurd, even knowing that there's no predetermined meaning, even knowing that we are temporary and vulnerable. His work is a testimony that awakening to the absurd is not a condemnation, it's a liberation. And now you, who have awakened and discovered that there's nowhere left to go back to, have the opportunity to write your own testimony, to show yourself and the world that it's possible to live magnificently within the absurd condition. Not because someone is watching and judging, not because there's a final reward waiting for you, but simply because this is your life, your moment, your unique opportunity to exist consciously in this mysterious and indifferent universe. And that in itself is already reason enough to make this existence something extraordinary, something that's worth every moment of consciousness you have the privilege to experience.